We are continuing our series in the church. And this week I'm having us consider the very critical importance of unity. I have my Bible open to the book of Ephesians. It's one of the last books that Paul wrote, and it's all about unity in the church. The Roman world was ravaged by divisions, very much like our world, really not too different. It was ravaged by socio-economic divisions, by gender divisions, by political divisions, by racial divisions. Just everywhere there was division. The church was truly a counter-culture movement. It was something that broke down divisions. It built bridges, didn't put up walls. And Paul, as he writes the book of Ephesians, is just saying, really speaking about how the unity of the church, it unravels the ironclad social order of the Roman Empire. And I think there's a significant message for us here, is that we're one body. We're one family. Paul stresses in this book the unity between, as brothers and sisters, between male and female, between the rich and the poor, between the young and the old, the advantaged and the disadvantaged. And just notice the words he writes there here. Always be humble and gentle. Be patient with each other, making allowance for each other's faults because of your love. Make every effort to keep yourselves united in the Spirit, binding yourselves together with peace. For there is one body and one Spirit, just as you have been called to one glorious hope for the future. Throughout that short passage, it's all about oneness, being one in this and one in that. This was radical Christianity. This was a Christianity that countered the mainline thinking. It countered the accepted norms of the day, just as it counters the accepted norms of our day. If not accepted norms, certainly practice norms. The words that I just wrote to you, Paul wrote almost the same thing to the Colossians, and he actually probably wrote these two books, just one after the other, while he was there in prison. To the Colossians he writes, "Since God chose you to be holy people that he loves, you must clothe yourselves with tender-hearted mercy, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. Make allowance for each other's faults, and forgive anyone who offends you. Remember, the Lord forgave you, so you must forgive others. Above all, clothe yourselves with love, which binds us all together in perfect harmony." As Paul writes these words, suddenly he can hear the bars clanging, and he looks up, and the guard is opening the door, and he introduces someone into Paul's cell who stands there in ragged clothing. There's a look of desperation in his face. Paul invites him to come in, and the man sits down, and a story unravels. The story comes out, just begins to flow out of the man. He's a runaway slave. His name is Onesimus. He has come all the way from Colossae. He's come to Rome probably because there were so many slaves living in Rome. He could hide there from those who would be hunting him down. But he's fearful. He's run away from someone who is one of those equestrian wealthy landowners who happens to be a friend of the Apostle Paul's. His name is Philemon. And as he tells his desperate story of how he's run away from Philemon and all of his fears that are ensuing him, Paul uses that as an example or a way of just sharing Jesus with him. He opens up the gospel to Onesimus. He tells him how Jesus died for him and loves him and accepts him, just as he is. And Onesimus gets on his knees and he gives his heart and his life to Jesus. Now, that's a great thing, but it opens up a bit of a dilemma for the Apostle Paul. Now he has a runaway slave, and he has a friend who is a landowner who owns a slave. This friend of Paul's, Philemon, would have the law behind him to have this man severely beaten, if not executed. And yet, though one is a slave and one is a slave owner, they both know Jesus as their Savior. Paul has two Christian brothers here. It's a dilemma. what's he going to do? How is he going to bring these two together? And so he begins to write another letter, a third one. And he writes it at the top, to my friend Philemon. And in the letter, which I have before me here, he urges him to receive him back, to forgive him, to love him as a brother. This is something that is absolutely inconceivable. If you can put yourself back into those days, an absolutely inconceivable thought that a landowner should take back a runaway slave and love him and forgive him and restore him as a brother. And so this letter to Philemon is written against the backdrop of Roman society and all the divisions that existed, and just the horrible, tragic institution of slavery that existed, that degraded individuals. And as you read through this amazing little book, it manifests how the gospel runs counter to the culture. It manifests how Christ's love breaks down all the walls of division that rise up, that exist between us. And as you read through the book, it's just a masterpiece of Christian tact and spiritual wisdom. As I read the book, I guess the first question I ask myself is, what barriers? I mean, there are many barriers that exist in the world, countless barriers that we can think of in the world. But what barriers exist within my own family, within my own home? What barriers exist within our neighborhoods? What barriers are up in our own church? What separates? Can it be race? Can it be status? Can it be education? Can it be wealth? Can it be personality? God calls us to break down the walls and to build bridges. What I'm going to ask you to do in the next little while is to read through this book. And as you read through it, ask yourself, what barriers exist in my life toward other people? What does God have to do in my heart to make me who I need to be in this world, in this counterculture movement called Christianity? And even initially as you read through the book, just look at the amazing Christian tact and spiritual wisdom that is here. And then I'm going to just have you follow through a series of questions whereby I'm just going to guide you through the book. So enjoy it, and may you find it challenging to your own life as it relates to your relationship with others in our world and in our church family.